Well, welcome everybody. It's Natalie Ashdown here with you. Happy Friday if you're listening to this live, and happy times, whatever time you're listening to this, if you're not live. Welcome to our coaching cafe for today. We're talking about getting the mindset right for performance conversations. And as we know, the performance conversations season is upon us. And we're thinking about how do we do those performance conversations better for the next couple of weeks. Before I begin, let me acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we're all meeting. And even though we're meeting virtually, I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and anyone who might be on the line who might be an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Island descent. So our agenda for today, we're going to be thinking about what's the right mindset for performance conversations. And I can see the wealth of knowledge and experience as always on our line today. So let's start getting that chat box working and sharing our ideas together. If you'd like to interact, go ahead, pop a message into the chat box. We can pick it up, send the note to all panelists and attendees, and we can read it as we go as well, because this is not just about me sharing ideas, it's about drawing on the wealth and knowledge and experience of the alumni as well. So we're thinking about changing the approach to conversations, and I know that a lot of you will be coaching managers to have better conversations. We may also need to be doing it ourselves. And as I mentioned, it's kind of the biannual performance conversations time at the moment. So that's why we're going to be looking at that and then focusing on our coaching. As always, if you're new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. It's great to have you join us. And these are free coaching cafes that we do every Friday. And we are about creating a community, sharing our learned experience, having some thought-provoking conversations on coaching, on what topics are actually happening during the week. So we're doing this live. We're thinking about what's the theme of the week and how can we have a conversation around that. And of course, welcome back to all the regulars. I just love connecting every Friday. I really look forward to it. I never know how many people are going to log on, but it's always great just to see the number of people who are joining us. So welcome everybody. So let's look at the research around performance conversations. And I always like to go to Gallup. I like to look at their latest research. And there's lots of different sources of research, but I do like Gallup because they are up to date in terms of the research. And this is the piece I picked up recently. The research says that only 14% of employees strongly agree that their performance appraisals or their performance reviews inspire them to improve. So only 14% would tick that strongly agree box. Only 14.5% of managers strongly agree that they are effective at giving feedback. So we can see what's happening here, can't we? If only 14.5% of managers feel that they're effective at giving feedback, then that can definitely correlate, I think, to the other statistic that we've got there, that if they're not good at giving feedback, then it's likely employees are not going to get much out of that conversation. And we know that, unfortunately, performance conversations are often just a tick box exercise. And that's why we want to spend a couple of weeks thinking about, we need to really be coaching people, or the opportunity to coach people around changing their mindset, doing performance conversations better so we can address these statistics in our organizations. The cost between 2.4 million to 35 million a year in lost working hours for organisations between 10,000 employees to take part in performance evaluations. So if you have a significant number of employees who are taking part in performance evaluations every half year or annual conversations, then that's a lot of lost working hours for the organisation if performance conversations are not done, if they're not done well. So that's why I think we have an enormous opportunity here to do performance conversations well, to help managers, to coach people around us, to think about their mindsets, to think about the purpose of the conversations, and to change things around. So let's talk about changing the approach, and I'm interested in what you think around what makes the right mindset for performance conversations. So let me put that out on the chat. What makes the right mindset for performance conversations? Let's start picking up your ideas, and then I'll incorporate them as we go along. We do need to change the approach because Gallup found when managers provide weekly versus annual feedback. So this is, we need to change the mindset to this not just being a half yearly event, and I'm sure you'll all agree, not just a half yearly event, but having regular conversations in the workplace around how we can improve our performance, around what's happening. And Gallup, excuse me, found that when managers provide weekly versus annual feedback to team members, the team members are 5.2%, 5.2 times more likely to agree that they're receiving meaningful feedback. So when it's weekly feedback, they're 5.2%, sorry, beg your pardon, 5.2 times more likely to think that that feedback is meaningful, probably because it's done in the moment, I'd say. 3.2 times more likely to agree that they're motivated to do outstanding work, and 2.7 times more likely to be engaged at work. These are for those of you that need to convince your managers that this is a good idea to just do weekly conversations, just to do weekly discussions about performance, so it's not just left to a 6-monthly activity. These are really, really strong statistics. 5.2 times more likely to agree that they're getting feedback, that it's meaningful, more motivated to do outstanding work, and 2.7 times more likely to be engaged at work. So that gives us some really good, strong evidence about why this is really important. We want to change the mindset. This is what we're talking about today. And you can jump in with your thoughts here too. Changing the mindset away from annual events and more towards regular conversations in a dynamic environment. Moving away from lack of preparation for conversations and the team member taking responsibility. Last week we talked about asking for feedback. So actually team members asking for feedback. And I've got a couple of clients I'm coaching at the moment where that's exactly what's happening. They're asking for the feedback. How can they continuously improve? Moving away from that kind of a lack of enthusiasm, like we've got to spend hours and hours doing these annual events, and more breaking our conversations down into manageable chunks so that we encourage communication and we encourage feedback, and moving away from unplanned discussions that are rushed and get rescheduled, and using our coaching tools. That's what we're thinking. So feel free to share what you think about the right mindset. These are the kinds of things we've been thinking about. We need to move to a mindset that is more regular, more dynamic, where the team member takes responsibility, where we're breaking things down, and of course, kicking in with our coaching approach as well. So let's have a think about the right mindset. We're talking about moving away from a conversations which are focused on weaknesses, where we just talk about what the employee is not doing, where the manager writes the plan, they're banging their head up against a brick wall, they're thinking, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? We're moving away from that telling and directing kind of mindset, because basically it just erodes confidence, and the statistics are actually backing that up as well in terms of lack of motivation. And we want to move towards a conversation that's more coaching driven. We want to be focusing on high performance, about what we want to see, where the employee writes the plan. So and you've heard me talk on the coaching cafes about I put myself on a performance plan, and I'm very keen for plans that we have, coaching plans to be put in place to make sure we're on track in terms of our performance. Where we have small and achievable goals, where the employee takes responsibility for reporting back, and of course we can use some models like the start, stop, less, more of model. With this, it's a mindset of accountability and responsibility. It builds confidence and motivation, and that's what we're really aiming for. Feel free to share your thoughts. I can pick them up into the chat box there. I don't think there's any kind of right or wrong mindset, but I do definitely think that we can be focusing on what we want to see, and that moving towards a coaching mindset around performance conversations is the right way to go. With that, we also want to be coaching managers to change their wording and change their focus. So rather than, I hear this quite a bit, what do you do with the underperformers? I've got a person who's underperforming. This is all very well talking about coaching, but let's discuss the people who are underperforming. So we get quite a bit of this discussion when for example, when we're delivering our leader as coach programs, or when we're delivering in-house programs with people. Whenever we're talking about performance and high performance or performance conversations, the conversation invariably leads to what do we do with underperformers. So this is where we want to actually be focusing and changing our mindset, changing our wording around the use of the word underperformers here. So a few suggestions. There's lots of great coaches on the line. We're looking at a big reframe here. We're looking at, rather than saying underperforming, let's talk about shifting, lifting, raising, changing, or improving performance. And I know a lot of people have actually listened to coaching cafes that we've had the last few months, where this has been a big theme for us: shifting, lifting, raising, changing, improving performance, because that's actually what we're aiming for. We're aiming for people to continuously improve their performance, to change their performance if it's not quite right, to lift their performance. I think about myself. There's areas where I want to lift my performance. I want to shift gears in terms of the performance in certain areas. And I love that idea of shifting gears. For me, it makes me feel motivated. It makes me feel like I'm achieving what I need to achieve, and that continuously keeps us engaged as well. So how do we shift, lift, raise, change, and improve performance? That's the mindset that we're really focusing on, rather than let's talk about underperformers. And here, let's have a look at what that might look like in terms of a reframe. So rather than what do you do with underperformers, how can we work with people who need to change, shift, or lift their performance? So what ideas do we have to work with people who need to change and shift their performance? Now, what we're talking about is thinking about what is it we want to achieve? Well, we want to achieve a lift in performance from where they are now to where we need to them to be. So let's have the conversation around that. I have a person who's underperforming. Let's talk about, I have a person, I'm working with a team member who needs to change their performance. What ideas do we have about that? How can we coach them to change their performance? So I have a person, a team member who needs to change their performance, who needs to shift their performance, who needs to switch gears in terms of their performance. So now we're thinking about what we actually want, rather than focusing on, well, they're underperforming and then that's kind of dragging us down. And by the way, terms and conditions always apply on our coaching cafes. We're not trying to operate outside your formal performance management, your formal performance conversations, your formal policies, procedures, and frameworks for performance conversations. So we're not trying to work outside that. What we're trying to do is, for the vast majority of people, work alongside and support the policies and procedures that are in place. Do coaching, so we're having regular conversations, and bring that in as a culture rather than your once-offs. And of course, we might say, instead of saying, let's discuss your underperformance, let's talk about a shift in your performance from where you are now to where you need to be. Let's talk about what's happening now, and let's discuss the options to get you to where you need to be. And this is where, if you incorporated a feedback conversation in terms of what's happening now, and where we want to move that performance to, what options we have, how can I partner with you, how can I work with you to shift and lift your performance. These are conversations which people are, they're still difficult, aren't they? But they're more likely to have. They're more regular, they're more likely to have the conversations, even if they are tough conversations. Thank you, Di. She says, language is so powerful. Framing it in this way helps with the mitigation of fear of feedback. Yeah, I think I totally agree with you there. There's fear of giving the feedback because we're not sure how it's going to be accepted. And there's also, if someone says, oh, do you mind if I give you some feedback? It's like, oh, here we go, what's going on? So there's a bit of a fear of receiving it too, I think. And so using this kind of language, changing the mindset around how we communicate here, I think makes a massive difference. Yeah, thank you. Other thoughts, comments coming up? So we're enabling everyday conversations. This is what we're talking about, enabling everyday conversations. And a number of you will have seen this model a few times now. I don't mind using it in a lot of different contexts and continually to put it in front of you. It comes from agile technology, the sprint technology in IT. I think that's where it originates from. And we're really talking about, well, enabling everyday conversations around our performance. Think about something where you're trying to achieve a certain level of performance. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in your personal life, or it might be in how you're writing reports, it might be about how you're communicating. Think about any area where you think, you know what, a little shift in my performance there might make a massive difference. So the question is, what do you need to start doing? What do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? What do you need to do more of? And what do you need to do less of? And I love this model. It is so easy to draw up a 2x2 grid, right? Start, stop, more of, less of, and then just write yourself a few notes. Doing that activity for you, it increases your performance because you can see it right there in front of you, what you need to start. I need to start an activity, I need to stop. So I might need to start phoning people rather than emailing them. I might need to do more of phoning and less of Zooms, for example. So, let's do, I don't know, let's just kind of try to mix it up a little bit in terms of how we're communicating at the moment. I might need to start getting out of bed earlier and stop hitting the snooze button 4 times. If I'm trying to increase my fitness and my performance around fitness, then maybe I should do more of getting ready the night before and less of fumbling around in the dark trying to find my gear in the morning. You can see how these kind of simple little techniques in any area of our performance can make a massive difference. This is for coaching ourselves. Now, when we're coaching others, this is a terrific, the most simplest little model that you can actually have conversations around. So when we think about what we're trying to achieve in the workplace, we're thinking about the level of performance we're trying to achieve. Let's have a discussion about what we need to start. Let's have a conversation about what we need to stop. Let's iron out the niggles. Iron out the niggles. Let's do more communication and less, a little bit of nagging and a bit of bitching and moaning and a bit of passive aggressive behind the scenes. So let's bring that out so that we can actually all together focus on what we're trying to achieve. So fantastic for self-coaching, fantastic for the most simplest, easiest model for putting in front of people and having everyday conversations around performance. So that's the kind of mindset that we're trying to encourage. And of course, just on a just on a side note, let's have a look at Dilbert here. For those of you that are listening rather than seeing my slides, the boss says to the worker, "Here's your annual performance review, Tina." And the boss says, "I focused on your performance for the past 2 weeks because I don't remember anything farther back." And Tina responds saying, "I was on vacation for the past 2 weeks." And he says, no time to chat. I need to start to spread some more motivation. So I just whenever I need a bit of inspiration and a bit of a laugh. You know, I've been a mad Dilbert fan for many years now, and I like to pull a cartoon. But it's so funny how you know Dilbert actually uh, how Dilbert actually mimics what's going on. So, you know, we've got a cartoon here, and I've had several people say, actually, that is happening in our workplace. So this is the kind of thing we're thinking about. Let's really think about how can we engage in everyday conversations around performance rather than making it this once-off event as well. Now, organisations will have many organisations. Are moving actually away from annual events. But you know, we're still going to be working with our policies and procedures. As I said, if your organisation's got a half yearly event or an annual event, we're still working within those frameworks. So over to you. What are some of your thoughts around this? What have you seen that works? What are you thinking in terms of some of the ideas we've shared around mindset? What mindsets have you seen out there? Feel free to share into the chat box. Yes, you're right there. You're right there, Sonia. People fear having the conversations. Yes, so similar to what Di said, she said people fear the feedback. Yes, people. I agree with you, Sonia. I think people are kind of like, ugh, here we go again. You know, it's annual performance conversations time. There's a lot of concern also if you have to give someone and have that difficult conversation with someone when that conversation, you know, perhaps should have been had at another time or earlier, you know, should have been nipped in the bud. There's a couple of people I'm coaching at the moment as well who have inherited members of the team. So they've inherited people. These people have never had formal conversations, so they've never really been told how about how to improve, how to shift, how to lift their performance. They've never really been coached around that. And I've got two executives at the moment who are facing the difficult situation of having to tell people that their performance needs to shift, change, and it's probably the first time they've actually heard it. So they might have needed to hear something, you know, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and no one's pulled them up. So that actually, you do see a little bit of that going on. Thank you, Lorraine. Thanks for jumping in. She says, I sometimes think people get hooked to the form and the process. Yes, great comment there. I sometimes think people get hooked on the form and the process rather than focusing on the performance conversations. Like you said, a tick boxing exercise and seeing it as completion of a compliance issue and I've done my job. Yes, so seeing this as like we have to tick the boxes as opposed to the purpose. I mean, the purpose is not just compliance and box ticking, is it? The purpose is to help bring out the best in people. The purpose is to bring out people's potential and remove any interference that's going on, to talk about the future, to talk about career plans, things like that. So how we can shift, how we can achieve our goals. So that's the purpose. And I agree with you. I hear quite a lot that it's a tick boxing exercise. Alexandra, thanks for jumping in. You've offered, I work for an organisation that used weekly check-ins for work tasks and monthly career conversations. This was an effective and easy way to head around. That's great. Yes, there's the research from Gallup actually supports that approach, strongly supports that approach. Actually, we saw that in our statistics today, didn't we? So the research strongly supports that approach. Weekly check-ins, monthly conversations. There's quite a bit of research on how having monthly conversations or regular conversations around career, perhaps not monthly, but regular conversations around career makes a difference. Yeah, thank you. It's great to have the examples as well. Thanks for jumping in, Jody. She says, I think it's unfair to people to leave it until their annual review to tell them their performance is not what's required. Yes, I saw that many times in my former workplace because the managers felt so uncomfortable giving that kind of feedback. It was a matter then of getting the managers trained so they felt more confident. Yes, and we know, Jody, you're a fantastic coach and you're spearheading that in your organisation. That's exactly what we're talking about. There's a lot of people I can see on the line who are spearheading that in their organisations. These regular conversations, the regular approach to giving and receiving feedback, to talking about how we can continuously improve, to talk about what we're trying to achieve and how we can move towards that. So regular conversations, using start, stop, more of, less of, it breaks down the barriers and it makes a huge difference. We can see that in the research, but we know it, don't we, as practitioners and as coaches. Yeah, get them trained. That's right. Send them on leader as coach. Yeah, thank you. Fantastic. Alrighty, so oh, there you go. As I mentioned, we do have a Leader as Coach program, and we're running it, and it's fantastic. We include all of these ideas that we're talking about how we can really focus on high performance in the workplace. It's just a 2-day program, so if you want your managers to get a dose of that, and you know, to really engage in the whole idea of performance, that's wonderful. You can support us by having them join the Leader as Coach program. A number of you actually have attained and have joined us for our mental health first aid program. This program is getting a lot of amazing feedback. It helps us have conversations in the workplace when we suspect that someone might need more support, you know, moving past coaching, but they might need some more support. And it's staggering when you think that 1 in 5 Australians will actually experience a mental illness this year. In the rural areas that I work with through our surf club, the statistics are actually much higher. So we're really proud to be making a difference in this by training people around mental health first aid. So if you are keen, pop your managers on our Leader as Coach program, come and have a look at our mental health first aid program. And as always, enjoy your coaching. So thank you for attending. Thank you for a great interactive session. I appreciated picking up your comments there. And most importantly, as I mentioned, if you're listening to this live, happy Friday to you all. Thank you, and I'll sign off for now.